right. Welcome back to Franchise This. I'm your host, Sean McKay. And today we're going to be talking about the Peach Cobbler franchise, Peach Cobbler Factory. And I'm turning it over. Hello, Greg. How are you,
Hello.
sir?
How you doing, Sean?
I'm doing great. Thanks for coming on the show. Great to have you. We found each other on LinkedIn, and I think this kind of proves the point. LinkedIn actually works sometimes. It's not all spam. Did you think I was spam when I reached out?
No, not at all. No, I watched one of your podcasts.
Oh, awesome. Thank you. Thank you. I'm glad to have you here. As you know, the show's all about informing new franchisors about the process of franchising, how it all goes, early brands, emerging brands. And I'd love to hear, before we get started, just a quick introduction on you, sir, and the Peach Cobbler Factory and what you guys are all about.
First of all, thanks for having me. Secondly, we've got a very interesting story. I've been in the franchise game now for over 25 years. I've been involved in the 42 different brands in my career. And I started as a franchise sales guy, and then I got into where I had equity in the companies. And 4 years ago, I owned 50% of 6 national food franchises. I've clawed my way to where I sit today, and I've learned the biggest lessons I've learned is what not to do in the world of franchising. I hope I can bring some perspective on that a little bit for the first time people that are investigating or trying to get their legs in the world of franchising, because it's not an easy path, especially if you're inexperienced. And I found out that the people entering the franchise industry, a lot of them, they have no experience in franchising.
Right.
They're clueless. They may have one heck of a brand, but they don't know how to get prospects. They don't know how to set up a real estate department, a finance department, a marketing department. All these very important factors in success is building an organization. I find that first time starters lack that. It's two guys that know how to make cheesesteaks or, whatever the case may be. So hopefully I can share a little bit of my wisdom with some folks.
Yeah, that's exactly what we're looking for. Man, and I don't think I've ever heard somebody with quite that resume before. 40 some odd brands
Yes.
and yeah, worked all the way up. I mean, it's a different origin story. A lot of guys that get into franchising, in my experience, are like you said, two guys in a truck, or they've cooked up a couple of good recipes and they think other people would want to do the same, and poof, they're a franchise with the help of a consultant, a lawyer, and all the good stuff. But yeah, you did it differently. So I guess, how did your interest in franchising begin? How did that
Actually,
start?
I didn't have interest in it. I had designed and built some of the most prestigious cigar lounge in the world for years when cigars were hot and heavy years ago, and then that flamed out. I got into the coffee shop game and probably designed and built over 100 coffee shops all over the country. And I would provide the fixtures, the lights, the everything, even the products they sold. And an associate of mine called me up and said, "Hey, man, I'm going to franchise my coffee shop, and I think you're the right guy. Would you come and take a look at it?" And I got into it, but I didn't want to. I'm like, wait, I can't make a living because franchise companies, they want the lowest cost. They're grinders. It won't work for me. But he convinced me, and just I think the man upstairs led me to this, and I jumped right in the business knowing nothing about it, didn't really like it, didn't like the franchise industry, but I quickly learned, that's the power is with the people. And so I got into it 25 years ago. And again, I started as a franchise sales guy. And then I worked my way into where I was successful in selling franchises. And then I said, hey, I want some equity. And then it was more equity. And then it became more equity. And then got me to where I am today with in just a very short period of time, we built a $50 million company with our bare
Oh, wow.
hands. Yes.
Wow. How many franchise locations does Peach Cobbler have currently?
We've got this morning, we've got 120 locations in 23 states. We've done that
Wow.
in 3.5 years.
That's incredible work, Greg.
Yeah,
Unlike what you generally hear, but it wasn't an overnight success, as you said.
no,
Like the path to get there
no.
was long, long before those 3 years, right?
And we're not only in brick and mortars, but we developed a multi-dimensional business here. We're Saturday we open up one of two of our new locations in the Dallas Fort Worth airport, where 90 million people are going to walk by our facility or stop at our facility because we're right at the entrance. So we got two going there. One open Saturday. We're in NFL stadiums. We've been in NFL stadiums. We're in college football
Wow.
stadiums, multiple college football stadiums. I've got a fleet of mobile units that we're serving small town America. We go into small towns of 10,000 people, and we have six, seven, $8,000 days selling an $8 dessert.
Wow.
Sell out most of every visit we make that's pre-planned. So, we're big into late night delivery. We're big into catering. We just got multiple ways of growing our business, and there's nothing like the Peach Cobbler Factory. People can maybe think there is, but if you look at our menu, it's nowhere in the world, and that's part of our success.
That's amazing. Yeah, and it sounds like you are a man that's great at networking as well.
I love people, and
Yeah.
networking has got some part in it. Networking's kind of how I stumbled onto my business partner. I didn't know the man, and if you don't mind, I'll just share a little bit about that.
Yeah, how'd that happen?
Well, this guy's name's Larry Johnson. He's not ordinary. He's extraordinary. And I saw online on Facebook, a very dear friend of mine said, I wouldn't be where I am today without Larry Johnson. So I sent a friend request and he accepted it. This is literally 3.5 years ago, a little over that probably. And I didn't know who the man was. And he just started sending me little notes, on Messenger on Facebook. Hey, call this guy, call this guy. I didn't call any of them. I didn't even know who they were. I didn't know who Larry was. But, Larry's done two things in his life, basically. Part of running the largest company in the world, General Electric, for 28 years. And then he was chairman and CEO of $40 billion Albertsons grocery store chain. And we just met on
Wow.
Facebook, and one thing led to another. He invited me to his home. He liked me, and despite my flaws, and liked me, invited me to his home. We met, and that was it. We were kind of, just acquaintances. He offered, support and mentorship, and that was it. And, just a few short months after I got going the business, he called me one day and said, look, he told me his age. He told me he's done okay. And he told me he liked me and he liked what I'd done. And he said, I'll tell you what, why don't you make me the chairman of this company and let's build the largest dessert chain in the world? And I couldn't turn him down. And
How could you? Yeah.
and he and I got together and we bought out the original founder of the company in short order. And here we are, 3 years later, a $50 million company. And by the way, I'm opening 7 stores in the next 4 weeks where we have commitments for hundreds of new locations. Now, big players, McDonald's franchisees, different big brand franchisees are finding us because nobody knows about us. We're kind of a hidden gem. And in the world of crumbles and insomnia, there is the little Peach Cobbler Factory, but our growth rate is faster and better than those companies. And we're just blessed. We've got great people, great management, great leadership. I've surrounded myself with winning people from Wendy's and Burger King and McAllister's Deli and different, nationally known brands that now work in our company that are helping us help our people.
It's truly incredible, that story. I have a feeling that Larry's gonna get a lot of friend requests after this airs.
Possibly,
Yeah.
possibly.
I might try to find the guy.
Yeah, his name's Larry Johnson, and he changed my life. And I mentioned this to you earlier, but it's important. And one of the reasons I agreed to do this podcast is there's another little part to this story that, even though I want to help first time starters and people may be struggling with how to build a brand, a national brand, is, what I didn't necessarily tell you, and I'm not ashamed to tell who's ever going to watch this podcast, but prior to me getting involved with the company I'm in now, prior to that, for 45 years, I was a stone cold drunk and drug addict.
Mhm.
Okay. I got high every day from 12 to 55. My father died in my arms at 50, an alcoholic. My grandfather died in a bar at 50, an alcoholic. My entire family was
Wow.
addicted to drugs and alcohol. I was a functioning addict and successful. But 8 years ago, I about lost my firstborn son to opiate addiction, and going through that
Yeah.
process with him, supporting him, helping him. I was able to get him in the right place. Make a long story short, the last drink and drug I had was 7 years and 9 months ago. It was the day I picked my son up from treatment. And I didn't, when I dropped him off, he weighed 130 pounds soaking wet. Well, I hadn't seen him while he was there, and I came back, I was scared to death. And a man opened the door for me in the treatment center, and it was my son. I didn't know. He weighed 200 pounds. He was rewired, reborn, and it just changed my life. And now my
Wow.
focus on top of building our company is I help other suffering people that suffer from addiction. I've gotten almost 50 people into treatment. These are strangers. I got them into treatment centers. I go a couple days a week. I pass out sleeping bags to the homeless in South Florida. So I'm putting my stuff into people, my energy, my love for people. And that's part of our success because, people come in and meet with us, they're going to invest their life savings in our brand. First thing I tell them is, look, I'm a drunk and a drug addict, but I'm in recovery and I'm an overcomer. I'm an overachiever. So I wanted to make that message more than anything here that it doesn't matter where you're at in life, you can overcome things. And I'm a great example of overcoming a really insidious disease, and it's what's helped propel myself and my family and my company, our company, to where we are today. So I want to get that out.
Indeed, you are you've made it through the other side and successful. And man, that's such a good story. It's touching. I think a lot of people who have gone through whatever hardships, be it that, other addictions, criminal convictions, family loss, anything, if you can just make it through the other side, it really gives you a new perspective for a new drive, I find. I don't know that there's anybody who's truly successful that hasn't had something awful happen as well along the way.
I totally agreed. And I wanted to say this also. The restaurant industry and the food game, which that's where my focus has been for 25 years, we're all notorious partiers. And
Yeah.
that's another reason I brought this to the surface is I know there are listeners out there that are struggling with addiction, or there's somebody in their family that's struggling with addiction. And, there is help. I help people. I believe the Lord put me here not to sell cobbler. He put me here to help people that are struggling. And anybody out there that's listening, they can go to my Instagram page that I am Mr. Positive, and that's how people come to me. They hear something online, and then the mom or dad calls me and says, "My kid's on drugs, or my brother's an alcoholic. Can you help us?" And I help them. And so that's what I'm here for. It's not necessarily to be the dessert king.
Amazing, Greg. I can't wait to get to know you uh, more even after the show. It sounds like you're really mission driven there and have real purpose. Have found your purpose. I think
Yeah.
that's incredible. And it's a magnetic sort of personality trait too when you find somebody like that. And it's hard. I think that probably helps you in the success of the growth of the business, as you said, because it's hard to turn away from somebody who's doing so much for others.
Yeah,
So
yeah, it's my gift. I know my gift. Many people don't find their gift, and I found mine. And by the way, it's 63 years old. I got clean and sober at 55. It's been a progression, and I love it. And I'm more
what a great
excited
story
now.
about how you can change though, right? Like, I think that's
Absolutely.
somebody listening could be 70 and there's still time for them to change. Yeah. So, you talked a lot about some of these challenges you faced kind of before franchising. And I'm sure there's been some road bumps along the way, speed bumps. What are some of the challenges that you faced during the process of franchising or since rolling out? I mean, I know getting to 100 locations, you're dealing with a lot of people now and different personalities and all the compliance stuff. Is there anything in particular that stands out for you that was a
Oh,
big
for sure.
challenge?
Well, the first thing I told that my partner Larry Johnson told me the first day I met him, he looked me dead in the eye and said, "Greg, it's all about the people." And the biggest challenge that I personally had, which is reflected on the company, it's the people. It's the people you choose. It's the people you choose to bring into your organization to manage a brand. It's the people that you approve to become franchisees. One of the biggest messages I have to give to people just getting in the game is, man, don't choose somebody just because they've got a smile on their face and they have the money. Okay, you got to get people with experience. You got to be people committed to working in the business. Our business, we found it's not for absentee owners. You got to grind. And so the people is the main message here from the top down. They've got to be excellence. They've got to be savages. They've got to be killers. I tell people before we hire people, if you're not a savage and a killer, let's don't go any further. You got to be willing when you're tired, you got to be willing to work. I can just be honest with you, the first 2.5 years, I've worked 20 hours a day, 7 days a week. Okay. And I still have a very strong work ethic, but you got to be willing to work. This is hard work. It's psychologically challenging. All the different people, the personalities, the franchisees, think they have great ideas, and some of them do, but many of them don't. And their bad ideas can kill a brand in a heartbeat. So vetting, I remember early on, again, I'm not ashamed to admit it, early on, if you had a great personality, you had some business experience, you were qualified financially, you were approved. Now, you can't even get a meeting with us unless you're pre-approved for an SBA loan, 2 years tax returns, personal financial statement, criminal background check. And I would recommend that for everybody from the beginning. It will save you a tremendous amount of pain.
I think a lot of, like you said, a lot of startup franchise businesses, they're looking for anybody, like you said, anyone who's got the money. And it is like uh, the the potential franchisee has all the power in the relationship. Like, "Oh, I have the money, so I'm gonna decide whether" yep. But I've heard from a few people now that by flipping that script and by making it more like, "We have the cookie, I have the we're looking for someone specific, and then if you're the chosen one, we are gonna invite you, and you only have 24
That's
hours,
right.
48 hours to make a decision."
Well,
Something like that, where it changes the power and the position of the whole opportunity to this is something special. This is something we care deeply about, and we wanna make sure you're right for us, not the other way around.
you're right on, man. I'm glad hearing that from you, that you know that much about franchising, because that's the way it is in the beginning. Oh, we want a franchise fee. The franchise fees, we could care less about any of that. Now it's about the people. I don't care if I sell another franchise. I got 300 plus agreements signed. I don't care. We want great people that want to go next level. That's what it is.
Incredible. Yeah, so it sounds like finding people became not a problem at some point, like finding the right people. Uh, obviously there's a filtering process, but just finding people to fill the coffers, fill the leads, your lead flow, your funnel, so to speak, became less of a challenge. Is there something you've done from a marketing perspective to accomplish that?
That's a great question, because that's what new and old folks struggle with. Like, how do we get interested parties? And early on, to be honest with you, the first 2.5 years, we didn't do any kind of marketing or advertising, and people came in droves because of our name. Everybody kind of grandma made cobbler kind of thing, and they came in droves early on. And now we do market because we're everywhere, and we're filling in the holes. But listen, I've spent hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars over the last 25 years. It used to be other people's money that I would spend when I didn't have equity. But now, I'm a 50% owner in this company, and my partner and I, we spend the money. It's a substantial amount of money. But look, the days of advertising on the franchise web portals, they're dead. They're lousy leads. It's a waste of time. I think the franchise, this is just me personally, by the way, I think these franchise conventions are a waste of time and money. It's tire kickers, it's tired, it's technology. That's how you're going to get people when you qualify them heavily. But, I never liked this in the beginning, but, we're masters of Google. Okay. And
Mhm.
when we get an inquiry, it's a qualified person. Okay. And it may cost $500 a lead through Google, but we're experts at, and that way you can grow regionally if you want to. You can target cities, states, whatever, effectively, and we do it. And now we're bringing in nothing but superstars, and it starts. If somebody came today, if I was mentoring somebody or consulting with somebody, I would tell them learn Google AdWords, and once you do that, every and you got to be willing and have the resources to roll with Google, but we do. And so when we get an inquiry, it is a qualified person. We know that going into it, and then we take them through the process. And again, they arrive with all this information. And most of these people are already ready to come on with us before we ever meet in person. Then they meet us, and I show up. I've got tattoos and stuff they're not used to.
Oh, sure, sure.
I'm a little unorthodox, eccentric, and even though I don't handle the franchise development, I only meet with people for 15 minutes, generally just to shake their hand, get to know them. But our director of franchise development, it takes 4 to 6 months for us to really get the right person. It's not a quick kind of a deal, and we're fine with that.
Wow, yeah, I hear from a lot of franchisors that the organic approach is always most effective, networking and things like that. But at some point, when you want to scale, you need to do some paid ads. And Google seems to be a recurring conversation here because they're pre-qualified already by the nature of how Google Ads works. If they're searching for you, there's at least some intent there. Unlike a meta ad, for example, where someone might be just browsing, you know, surfing the web and stumbling upon your opportunity. So yeah, you really attribute a lot of that growth to
Yeah.
your success
And
in
also
Google.
one other, it's just a little, it's not a trick, it's just a little strategy we use on the front door of every single location where the hours are and our logo are, it says now franchising. And so that, especially when we open up new stores, people come in and the business people in that community see it on the front door and then they look around and go, wow, this stuff's good. And maybe there's an opportunity for me. So that's another little thing. And I've always joked with people, always put stickers in the bathroom on both
Ah,
toilet paper rolls that say now franchising. It's a little funny thing, but we do
that's
it.
like a
And
bar trick.
yeah, we do it. But anyway, it's a, it's very competitive. We're competing with the likes of Crumble and Insomnia and Dairy
Right.
Queen. We learned it well, and we're doing very well with how we actually find people that are interested.
That's great. Was there like a turning point, a snowball effect where after you got 30 locations or 50 locations or whatever, that it kind of picked up dramatically?
Actually, it picked up dramatically from day one.
Day one.
And now it, used to we would open up in a big market like DC, we would get 100 inquiries in a couple weeks, and now
Wow,
we don't for one reason or another, and we can't figure that out. But it's been steady for the years at the Peach Cobbler Factory. The inquiries have been steady. I say this, people don't believe me, but I don't care if we ever sell another franchise. I'm not into selling franchises. I'm into creating an opportunity for people, and yeah, it helps build the business and build the brand, but it's all natural for us. We're a very natural kind of company.
yeah,
I'm a manifesting fool, and I know our next stop's 250, and then the next stop's 500, and then 1,000. We've already got it all mapped out and strategized, and we're right on target.
that's excellent. Great to hear it. This next question I always ask is sometimes a little tough, but to think about is if someone is starting the journey of franchising, is there some advice that you can give them as their mentor? You've already given so much, so just ask a different one. But to skip scars and learn the lesson, like, is there something they could a pitfall they should avoid, or something you definitely suggest they not do?
First of all, I want to suggest what they do. They
Start with the
number
positive.
one, they get a really good franchise attorney that know a law firm that knows what they're doing to really keep them out of trouble. Okay. Number two, they get a really good accounting firm. From the beginning, they know they need to collect the data from their franchisees, their P&Ls, their marketing reports. This is where I think a lot of startups fall back. They don't know about lawyers, they don't know about accounting, they don't understand they have to build infrastructure, they don't understand it's all about support, it's about communication, it's about culture. That's one thing I think a lot of startups they just don't put into the equation. They're just thinking, okay, we're going to get rich or whatever the case may be, and it just doesn't work that way.
Those are great, two really great ones. But what about the money? So when they start up, they may not have any other open. They shouldn't have any other franchise locations yet. They need to get this expensive attorney. They got to get this FDD filed. They got to go through and find biz development people. They got to get the accountant. They got to get the software. All this expense, right? And they're still trying to run their corporate store. What should they do about all this money flow issue? They're going to have cash flow issues at this stage.
Boy, that's a really good point. I would just suspect that a lot of these startups don't have the resources, okay, and they're bootstrapping it. And fortunately for me, and now my partner, we've had zero debt from day one. We owe nobody a dime today. It's almost 4 years. It's over 4 years into it. But you have to have the resources. You have to. By the way, the other thing is This is some really good advice. Don't just go out and jump in bed with the first law firm that you find that's in the franchising because, listen, some lawyers charge hundreds of thousands of dollars to set you up, and some $20,000 to set you up. And so, number one, do your homework on that part because I've seen a lot of people throw a lot of money away and then they never get their legs and they lose that money. You have to have some financial resources. At the time I got involved with the Peach Cobbler Factory, I was living in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean on a 55-foot ocean yacht by
What?
myself, okay? And I had saved money, money I've made over the years, and I had the resources to invest in this, but most don't. And
Right.
so that must be a part of the plan. How are they going to fund getting the FTD done? How are they going to fund getting the initial creative done? Who's going to create the operations manual? Who's going to create the training manual? These are all things that are left out in a lot of cases, unless
I
you
mean,
hire a consulting company that charges you, sometimes hundreds of thousands of dollars to create this for you.
yeah, and like you said, with the attorney and consulting and all these people, it's like finding the Goldilocks, like the not too expensive, not too cheap, right in the middle, sort of fit for you. If you could ballpark it, is there a certain price point that you think or cash that they should have on hand in order to get through all the stuff in the beginning? Because I think a lot of people, again, go into franchising not knowing a thing about it. And if they at least could have a number in their head, like, okay, we shouldn't move forward unless we can afford 250,000 or whatever it is. What do you think
Uh,
that number looks like?
just because I have been a part of all these brands in one way or the other over the years, I've seen all the different ranges of the investments. People would be shocked if they knew what my initial investment was to get this, but I had experience. I think I'd incriminate myself if I came up with a number, and I don't want to do that.
All right,
But
fair enough.
I would say the range would be between 50 to $100,000 to do it the right way out of the gate.
Yeah.
It might not take that much money if you have some background in it, or maybe have an associate or a friend that's a lawyer that can advise you, or a rich uncle, whatever the case may be.
Yeah, one of my friends who also came on the show, Tim Doherty, owns Project Lean Nation. He was mentioning that because of all the missteps and fall downs and picking the wrong partners and technologies, and his startup really was around 250. So I think we're getting some good advice somewhere between 50 and $500,000. That's where we're at right now. So, all right. Well, thank you for that. I won't hold you to it, and I don't think anybody listening will. All right. Well, my last question would be if you were to give some counterintuitive advice, something that was maybe contrary to what you hear from the consultants and the influencers and the people talking and the talking heads, what would that be? Is there something opposite to what you've been told or what you've heard that you would share with the audience?
I really think the first thing in order to build a successful brand is the people at the top. Generally, it's a guy like me. They've got to have a passion for what they're doing. They really, first of all, they have to be a people person. They have to be able to handle enormous amount of mental strain. Okay. Those are things that lawyers or consultants don't tell a startup guy or guys or women or whoever the case may be. You have to be mentally strong to
Yeah.
get in this business. You've got to be able to be a psychiatrist, a banker, a strategist, a real estate developer, a CPA, a marketing expert, who's ever in charge. You got to know all those different facets of the business. And most guys, again, I've been dealing with men and women for 25 years. They were good at cooking a fish sandwich. Maybe
Uh,
they were good at accounting in their business, and that's why they're getting in franchising because their books are strong. But you've got to be. This is a brutal business, man. And if you're not psychologically ready, if you're not grounded, if you're not solid, you will go up in flames in a New York minute. It's just the way it works. This isn't a get rich quick deal at all. You got to be looking at the long game versus the short game. I can remember early on, it's like, oh no, we got to get a franchise fee in here at this company. And that's the last thing I care about now, because if you do it right, you'll build one hell of a royalty stream. You if you're really good, your franchisees in your system will build. I got franchisee that's been in the system 3 years. He's on his sixth location. Okay, we
Yeah.
didn't call him and say, "Hey, will you keep building stores?" He's calling us. Okay, he's the
Yeah.
man that put us in the Dallas Fort Worth airport, soon to be not one location, two locations. Okay, so again, I'm going to revert back to the what my mentor Larry Johnson told me on day one. It's all about the people. It's the staff you bring in. I mean, early on, I brought in family and friends. Okay, I've since fired every single one of them. Okay, because it didn't work out, and it was terrible to have to let a friend go or a family member. But it's all business, and it's the people you surround yourself with. And I think that's personally and in business. It's all about people. It's all about communication, and it's all about relationships. At least that's from my standpoint.
Well said. And I think, the consultants and lawyers and, there's going to be people that you meet along the way during this process that are going to try to convince you to keep going forward. And you may not be ready. So I think that's good advice. And, really take in self inventory and make sure you're ready for it because it's not going to be easy. I don't think anybody's come on this show to say franchising is a breeze.
It's far from
Yeah.
it.
Now, the Peach Cobbler Factory, there's some changes happening there, right? You guys are advancing the model a little bit and moving more into full service food. Is that right?
Yeah, well, I'm glad you asked about our initiatives in the food game. We've just decided that it makes sense for us. We're a Southern thing. That's one of our taglines, but we're moving our tagline to comfort food all day long. And breakfast, lunch, and dinner are going to play a part of our company in the future. We created an incredible breakfast menu with premium coffee. We've created an incredible lunch menu, a dinner menu, which will lead to a more extensive catering program for our franchise partners and for those that use catering services. And again, our products are unique. I mean, nobody that's watching your podcast or nobody out in America has ever had a macaroni and chicken uh, meal in a cup. Okay, they've never had a meat and mac with barbecue. They've never had a savory cobbler with chicken, turkey, or Italian meatballs. They just haven't. And we've created these unique products that taste fantastic, that have excellent price points. And what it's going to do is, instead of us waiting until people roll in at 5:30 in the evening for the cash register to start blowing up, they're going to roll in at 6:30 in the morning for one of our great breakfast sandwiches or a cinnamon roll six ways or cold brew coffee or premium coffee with regular decaf and flavor. And they're going to all of a sudden go, man, this food's really good and it's quick and it's priced right. And then the next thing you know, they're going to go, whoa, they got lunch products, they got menu. And the next thing you know, these commercial businesses or doctors' offices or places that use catering services are going to go, wow, they've got breakfast, lunch, and dinner and dessert. And we just believe it's going to drive our sales through the roof. And we think it's going to help our franchise partners increase their sales dramatically, which will in turn increase their profits. And we're going there. I'm
Everybody
manifesting this.
wins.
Again, I'm manifesting this on your podcast. Our franchise partners, we've alerted them, but we haven't formally announced this. This has been 9 months of hard work, and we're getting ready to launch in with our top 5 locations in the next 30 days in America.
Wow. That's exciting. Well,
Very.
congratulations, Greg. That's awesome. Now I'm from New York. Are you guys going to do a bacon, egg, and cheese?
Well, we actually do. We have a egg and cheese and bacon, egg and cheese and sausage sandwich with fresh baked biscuits, 6 cinnamon rolls. We also have, we're calling them bigger and better biscuits that you can get strawberry, grape, and Mike's Hot Honey. And we just partnered with Mike's Hot Honey that we're going to be offering the Mike's Hot Honey on our ice cream, on our milkshakes, and on our
Ooh,
churro sticks. And then eventually it'll be available to put on anything.
that sounds great. I can't wait to try it. Okay,
Yeah.
that sounds great. Thanks again for coming on the show today. If anybody wants to find you, I know you dropped your Instagram later, but if you want to repeat that and as well as the Peach Cobbler site.
Yeah, sure. Anybody wants to reach out to me, you can go to Instagram. It's I am Mr. Positive on Instagram. And the Peach Cobbler Factory, our website is www.peachcobblerfactory.com. You can find us on all social media sites.
Excellent. Thanks again, Greg. Thanks for coming on the show. And this will be available wherever podcasts are found. And we'll have another episode to you next week. Thanks again for coming, Greg.
Thanks for having me.